Welcome to Splintered Spirits, a podcast hosted by me, Gary, and my nephew, Johnny. With a clear goal in trying to prove Johnny's theory that ghosts are memories in the form of dispersed energy, we're going to dive right in. This episode takes place at a cemetery where Johnny just finished one of his live TikTok streams for his @SantaParanormal platform. For those listening for the first time, the random blurbs and voices you hear in the background, that's not someone with Tourette's. Those are the ghosts. The voices my nephew picks up with his spirit box. Let's get into the conversation. Hey, Johnny, what's up?
Listen, as we're sitting here and I'm all set up, I just did a session on TikTok, a live session, speaking to a child version of a spirit that I have been documenting for 3 years at a completely different location. This spirit that I'm speaking to now is the child version of the older spirit.
Holy water.
Okay. Now, all right, first of all, you got to tell everybody where you are.
So I am at a
Agreed.
local cemetery here in Westchester County, New York, and I am at the grave of Edward.
I'm not clear on the legalities of name dropping, even of the dead, and we're about to make some terrible claims about this man. Rather than pay a lawyer to find out, I'd rather not worry about some great-grandnephew coming after me for defamation. Describe the scene. Is it like a super old grave?
So I'm in an older section of this cemetery, graves dating back to the 1700s to the early 1900s.
Got it.
It's a very nature setting. Like, it's not a uniformed cemetery. There's graves everywhere, trees, animals. It's very peaceful, serene nature setting.
Gotcha. Now, you do your live TikToks from here a lot?
Yes.
Now, I caught the end of your live stream, dude, so I saw that, like, and this is, again, me trying to understand TikTok. They had, like, over 300,000 likes. Does that mean people are just sitting there hitting the screen and giving you
Yes.
hearts? In the first episode, I said I wasn't going to make this about a boomer trying to understand how TikTok works. But when I don't know something, I'm going to ask. Move past it.
Yes, that session, we had between 400 and 500 people watching. They were sitting there tapping the screen, sending hearts.
And when I see those really whacked out icons and GIFs pop up, people have to pay to use those, right?
Yes, so people pay to use them. That's called sending a gift. And I get a certain percentage of that gift that they send.
That's amazing to me. Oh my God. All right. So now you're out there, you're doing a session, and this is exactly what we're trying to prove, which is like the biggest. I mean, the TikToks are fun and you're getting spirits and you're having conversations. But for this, we're really trying to follow and hone down this theory of these fractured memories, these splintered spirits. Remind us about the history of Edward.
Edward
Inside.
was originally from Massachusetts. He had a very bad and abusive father, which led him to flee his home at a young age. We're talking like 12, 13 years old. And he left. He went to New York City, and we don't know if he panhandled on the streets of New York City to build his fortune, but something happened in between him leaving Massachusetts and coming to New York City in the early 1800s that allowed him to build a mass fortune. He built up his fortune buying properties and owning businesses. Then he ends up retiring early in Westchester County at the building where I live and I work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where my story begins with Edward. I have countless hours of documentation with Edward. He is a completely nasty spirit, completely nasty. He is all about money and greed. The spirits there have said that he has gotten involved with. How graphic can I get on here?
Well, I'll bleep it if it gets too graphic,
Okay.
But go ahead,
Awesome. So I'll just speak freely about Edward.
Yeah. God, please don't get us sued.
According to the spirits,
The spirits? That's his source?
not only murdered people, but used them ritualistically, taking advantage of people that were displaced in the Civil War. There are accounts of Edward, and this is all according to the spirits, raping,
Gross.
keeping sex slaves,
Lost me at slaves.
using their children for rituals,
Ooh, that's bad.
having many bastard children in the process that actually survived, just being an overall horrible human being.
So, wait, I gotta ask.
Father wants me dead.
Wow, did you just hear that?
I did hear that.
Okay,
Everybody
so he just
heard that.
This is the child version of Edward. He just said, "My father wants me dead. Can you hear me?"
Okay.
So,
now,
and
all right. We're gonna get into this child. I want to know something about when you say the spirits are the ones in your building who told you this history of Edward. So
Yes.
when I hear these voices come through, they are very short spurts or phrases. How are you coming to this conclusion that Edward is guilty of all the things the spirits are saying?
Imagine
To your
for
left.
3 years sitting in one location, communicating with spirits, not only communicating with Edward, Edward's coming through. Other spirits are coming through saying, he raped me,
Open.
he murdered me, he sacrificed me. Edward was a bad man. Edward was this, Edward was that. There are spots at the building I live in that Edward won't go because of the other spirits that are there. He stays confined to one area.
He must have ancestors, right? Or family. Have you ever tried to track down family?
Interesting enough, what
How
happened
we
with
met.
Edward was that
Daughter.
he just, it's funny, he just said daughter. Uh Edward had only one son that ended up dying in his 20s, and he had five daughters that were not, not bastard children. We're talking about they bore his last name. Some of those daughters didn't make it.
Dead.
The two daughters that did make it ended up marrying other prominent families in the area, and the last name fizzled out.
You couldn't find where it went.
No.
Okay.
Interesting enough, and they'll never come forward. I'll never be able to interview them. I've spoken to them personally. In my hometown, I have spoken to the bastard family of Edward.
You have to admire Johnny's commitment
Ones
to the
that
word
survived.
bastard.
There are stories
Like he's straight out of Game of Thrones.
about that one of the daughters that ended up surviving
How many?
rescued three of the bastard children. One of them was just a baby, and two of them were little girls, and they escaped. And she was able to get them out of the house before they were
Protect.
sacrificed. And that bastard family is still around in my village. And what's insane is I'm wearing a shirt the shirt says I'm a stupid stoner because Edward calls me a stupid stoner at the building.
Stupid stoner.
Edward, come on, man. Can't we hug it out or something?
Okay. And so the shirt says, it's got a big pot leaf on it, and it says, I'm a stupid stoner, or John's a stupid stoner.
Change.
Edward. I'm at the bar. There's an older woman at the bar in her 60s. She sees the shirt and she looks at me and she goes, "What do you know of that man?" And I straight up was like, "You might sound what I'm about to say crazy, but," and I explained everything. She burst into tears. And then she goes, "My family has held on to these secrets for decades. We know all about this. Nobody believed us. This is where we come from." And I'm like, "No, I believe you." I was like, "I believe you."
All right, I'm going to take a quick second here.
Okay.
See this stupid stoner shirt, and I see that you are missing a tooth, and you look like a homeless crackhead right now. Please tell me what is going on with that tooth, because, like, what did you do to yourself?
So listen, I've been doing construction for years, and I was working at this very haunted building where Edward is,
Agreed.
and I am on a ladder, and I needed a pair of channel locks to loosen up a lug nut that was keeping a fixture held up. And somehow, some way, those pliers slipped and whacked me right in the mouth and just destroyed the tooth.
Has anybody ever yelled at you out in the cemetery? They look at this guy missing a tooth, walking around with a stoner shirt. I mean, is it like, what's keeping somebody from like calling the cops thinking you're a grave robber?
One big thing, because I don't know if you know this, I actually do a lot of work in cemeteries. Like I take over abandoned cemeteries. I have a certain etiquette in cemeteries that I follow. When it comes to cemeteries that are you drinking blood?
No, bro, that's funny. No,
Again.
it's my iced
I'm about to
coffee,
be
dude.
like, yo, my uncle's a
Yeah,
vampire.
yeah.
Yeah,
No,
so
this is my go-to grande iced coffee, black.
nice. I have a certain etiquette in a cemetery. And for example, I don't do any work in this cemetery other than cleaning stones. I clean a lot of headstones here. I have a great relationship with management. So before I go into a cemetery, I contact whoever's running the cemetery, find out the details, what's allowed, what's not allowed, XYZ, dot all my I's, cross my T's, and I stick to the old
Forward.
sections of these cemeteries. So anybody that comes here and visits, they're not family of any of these people. And if they are, they're like far away descendants. And I have full permission to be here.
Got it.
So, but I do, but But I do every now and then come across crazy people. One woman was stalking me, and she ended up running over 2 graves, and she ended up getting kicked out of the cemetery.
All right, let's talk about Edward. Now, you're sitting close to his grave, I assume?
Yep, let me turn this around real quick.
Okay. That's the tall one?
The tall one is just a grave marker.
Yeah.
That just tells us who's buried in the family plot. It's Edward, his wife, and a couple of his children. His actual grave is this small grave that says father.
Does that say mother and father?
Yes. One,
It's a little blurry right now, but
one
yeah.
says father, one says mother.
Got it. And then there's a bigger monument behind it that's supposed to be his family plot in this. And yeah, it is a very sporadic looking cemetery. You're right. It does not look like there is any uniformity to where these graves are buried. It was just like first come, first serve, I guess.
So for example, I'll also sometimes, I don't know if you can see it, I'll also sometimes plant flowers. That's a grave I cleaned right over there named William. Nice guy.
Nice guy. Hey, let's get into Edward, man. And let's figure out how we try to connect Edward here to when we do another session in your basement and try to see and talk to that Edward there. So, all right. So how do you know it was Edward? And why do you think the child version is here?
This is my 4th time here documenting this plot and coming across this child version of Edward. The reason why I think the child version of him is here is because his mother is here, not his father. He had a really bad relationship with his father.
I just heard uncle. Do we think this thing knows I'm here?
The family plot.
Now, why do you think that? Why do you think it's because of the mother?
So,
who are you?
It just asked, who are you? This thing is definitely trying to talk to me, and I am not ready to engage with the
during
ghost.
the session I just did on TikTok, we heard the name Mary come through quite a bit. And there's a couple Marys buried here because it's a family name. However, the child version of Edward is also coming through. So I believe that the mother is here. So these splintered memories, these quantum memories connect, and
Not
we're
likely.
able to.
It's weird that I just heard not
child
likely,
version of
because I have a few
Edward
questions
through the
about the
mother
logic
being
of all
buried
of this, but I'm gonna wait until we get more, what should we call it? Ghost data? I guess ghost data, until I talk to Johnny about all this. Did the child do to identify himself to you that you know it's him? Like, how did you?
Yeah, so he's already told us his name. He said, "My name is Edward." He said, "My mother calls me Ed." And he's speaking about his father in great lengths. I guarantee while we do this session, he's going to bring up his father a lot. So this child version of Edward has a lot of resentment. Now, you know what? I can't even call it resentment. It's more like a lack of understanding about why his father is so mean. He keeps bringing it up. My father is a bad man. My father's so mean. So I think that's what led him to become the monster financially and humanely that he ended up becoming.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
I'm coming.
According to the spirits.
According to the spirits. What? Okay, man, let's get him. Try to get him. Call him out, dude.
Edward. Edward, if you are here, can you please tell me your name?
She told me.
What did she tell you? Is there someone here telling you not to speak?
Stop it.
Something's going on.
He told me.
Something's going on. Edward, tell me about your father. Don't hold back.
Happy.
You're happy? Why are you happy?
Maybe he's happy he's dead.
Maybe. Edward,
It's what we want.
who's we? Is that you and your mother?
Trip.
Dude, look at my arm right now. I don't know if you can see it. I just
What, you
got
getting
chills from that.
goosebumps?
Yeah.
Getting chills? Edward, I want you to talk to me about your father. Tell me how he treated you. Don't be scared and don't be shy and don't listen to any other spirit right now. I want you to listen to me and the sound of my voice. Tell me about your dad.
Not.
Okay?
Leave it.
You want me to leave it alone? How about this, Edward? Why don't you tell me about your mother instead? What's funny is he didn't come through for 40 minutes while I was on TikTok. It was just a bunch of other random spirits. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I was explaining to somebody what I know about the child version. And then right when I said, oh, yeah, he didn't like his dad, bam, he just started going on about his dad. Edward, do you remember what you said to me the last time I was here about us being friends?
How John visits me.
I mean, come on, dude. Come on.
Yes, I do. I do visit you. Edward, who are you talking to? He's talking to somebody else. He's not talking to us. Because he just said John visits me. So what I think's going on, I think there's another spirit here trying to tell him not to speak. That's what we were hearing before. And right now, the evidence of that is he just said John,
Evil.
evil. Is there something evil here? Edward, let's talk about that. What's trying to stop you from speaking?
She won't leave.
She won't leave. It's a she? Interesting. And that happens a lot while I'm doing this. I have spirits that bother other spirits, almost like a jealousy thing. Like, oh, how come, he wants to talk to you and not me?
I want everyone to know that I'm watching you right now. You're on camera. I can see your hands. They do legitimately feel like you're answering your questions. But like on the TikTok, you're not always on camera. And I can see why people
Oh, I
might.
get that all the time. I get people that are constantly like, oh, you're pressing buttons. Oh, that's a recording, and it's just I have a great community and they know how I operate. There's that level of trust. And they know that sometimes I'm such a
What is
space kid.
happening?
Edward, right now what's happening is I'm talking to my uncle. Edward, I want you to tell me about your parents.
Pain.
You're in pain. I know you are. I want you to introduce yourself
Hair.
and then tell me about your parents. It would be doing me a great favor if you can introduce yourself and then tell me about your parents.
Satanic.
Satanic? Earlier in the TikTok live, he was describing his father as Satan.
Where are you?
Where am I? I am right by your mommy's grave. Edward, can you please introduce yourself and tell me about your parents?
I don't want to talk over it. I'm trying to talk low.
That's my issue on TikTok.
Night.
Edward, I know it's hard, and I know you got a lot of other spirits talking.
That sounds like a different voice.
Yeah.
Do they sometimes sound different through the app?
Inside.
It all depends on which app I'm using.
Got it.
So Vox,
Mm-hmm.
Vox scans through radio waves. The spirits manipulate the radio waves via the magnometer.
Mm-hmm.
Think of it as the butterfly effect. A butterfly flutters and it causes a tornado. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
you've ever heard about that,
Sure.
but
Sure. I actually do know what the butterfly effect is, but I'm not sure how chaos theory, a small action leading to a vastly different outcome, applies to an iPhone app.
but with GhostTube,
I
it's
want
different.
to talk.
All right. We'll get back to you, Edward. We'll talk to you, Edward. I need you to tell me your full name and tell me about your parents.
Sister.
You did have a sister. You did have an older sister. Would you like to talk
Hug.
about her?
Locket.
You had a locket of hers.
Offer me.
It was for me. You hear that? He's talking about his sister passed away when he was young.
I can hear you.
Good. I'm glad you can hear me. I'm talking to my uncle right now,
Dude.
Edward. That's why it seems like I'm talking to somebody else. It's crazy, right? Edward, let's talk more about your family life.
I'm like looking over your shoulder, making sure no one sneaks up behind you with like an axe or something.
Satanic.
They were freaking.
Please leave.
That sounded like satanic.
Yeah.
Please leave.
That's exactly what that was. So there's something. So interesting enough, a lot of spirits, when they're negative and angry or sad, they look different to other spirits because of the vibrational frequency. There's something here, which, I suspected that looks to be evil. And a child might be like, oh, that's satanic, that's evil, which we both heard both those words. That doesn't necessarily mean it's demonic, or an entity from a hell-like dimension or anything like that. Because technically, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in heaven and hell. I don't believe in your pitchfork and all and your sky daddy and all that.
Later.
But these spirits do. So we have to go by their lingo. If they see something that they don't understand, they're going to be like, "Oh shit,
Total side point. Did I ever tell you how the Church of Satan wanted me to join?
no."
Because we used to like a lot of the same stuff on Twitter. And someone reached out and asked me to join. And I said, I will not join any organized religion. And they responded with admiration, saying, that was the most satanic response ever.
Yes. Yeah. Well, so that's
Satanic.
satanic. They just said satanic again. Well, what's interesting? They don't even believe in Satan. They're all atheists. You know, which is very interesting. It's not when people hear the Church of Satan, they're like, "Oh my God, the devil and this, that, and the other." No, it's not. The imagery is just there as an example.
Grandfather.
You know, as that's all it is. It's actually really interesting. And hey, they're not wrong with their commandments. I'm sorry, but
The pillars?
yeah,
No,
yeah.
dude. They got some good ones,
They
dude.
got
They
good ones,
do.
man. That's how I live my life. You know,
What
like
year is it?
what year is it? It's 2024. Let's see if we can. Edward,
Open it.
Edward, listen. I'm gonna try to change my voice up a little bit, frequency and all that fun stuff. Edward, I want you to remember your parents and speak about them.
Silly.
Silly? Why is it
Do
silly?
not.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he doesn't want to talk about them now. It's interesting, right?
We should also give him some of our secrets
Satanic.
to test if this is connected to the other Edward.
According to my theory, technically, these two spirits shouldn't be connected.
Yeah, here's what I think. Tell him this, Johnny. Tell this Edward the first girl that you tricked into taking your virginity.
Well, technically, I was tricked because she was 15 and I was 13. Or not, you know. Her name was Catherine. Edward.
So now he'll know. Now he'll know
Yeah.
that, and we'll ask the other
Well,
one
the,
that.
the other Edward's gonna turn around and is gonna tell me to shut up that I'm a virgin.
Oh, that'll be great.
Leave.
Leave. We don't mean to offend you, Edward. We're not trying to be mean. We're not trying to be mean.
What else can we tell this version to see if it comes over? We'll see how many.
I've got one.
John visits me.
It just said John visits me. Yep. I definitely visit you, Edward. Edward, this man that I'm speaking to, that you can hear, this is my Uncle Gary. Okay.
I hate my dad.
Holy shit.
Well, this is my uncle. This isn't my father. This is my uncle. All right. I just want it. This is my Uncle Gary. So you know for the next time.
Stroke.
Okay. All right, Edward. So now, when we talk to the other Edward, when we talk to the,
See if he knows my name.
we're going to see if he knows your name, but we're going to say you're my brother.
His idea is definitely smarter than my
And we're
virginity
going to
bit.
see if he goes, oh, yeah, that's your brother. You know what I'm saying? If he goes and says, no, that's your uncle, then we know there's a connection between the two.
He knows you're lying to him.
He knows I'm lying to him. So listen, I got to go.
Johnny, this was great. This was a solid session. The first step in proving this theory. Look, I don't want to hold you up. I know you got to go. I love you, bud. Next week, we will talk to the older Edward.
Yes.
And you're not going to want to miss next week because Edward has a lot to say.
Big loser you are.
Oh, you know
my
what?
God.
You're a big fucking loser, Edward. You're a big fucking loser.
Thanks for listening to Splintered Spirits with me, Gary, and my nephew, Johnny. You can find Johnny streaming live on TikTok at Santa Paranormal. Come back next week to hear more of the conversation.